2020 or 2025 FAFSA Workshop. So at this time, I will turn it over to our chapter president, Bridget Herring-Williams, to bring us a greeting for this evening.
Great evening, everyone, and thank you for your presence here tonight for our FAFSA and financial aid workshop. By providing financial assistance, educational institutions give students the opportunity to reach and complete their higher education. At the same time, providing aid can also be a way to inspire students to become philanthropic once they become established professionals. And then they come and talk to me. But tonight's session is a great opportunity for parents, guardians, and students. I hope that you all take lots of notes because you will receive a wealth of information. Thank you to our scholarship committee for sponsoring this program tonight. And thank you, Ms. Ruffin, for again sharing your expertise. Again, many thanks to each of you for joining us, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen so that we can begin talking about the wonderful things of paying for college and understanding that process. Let me know if you can see the screen. If you cannot, I need to know that for sure. So
Timeka, can I introduce you first?
Oh, yes. Look, I didn't know. Yes.
You're fine. You are fine. Okay. I'm Tandra Young, co-chair of the scholarship committee, and just like to give you a brief introduction of Timeka Ruffin, who is employed by College Foundation, has a regional manager for the College and Career Information Service. She has worked at the foundation, I think, about 18 years now. She also previously worked at public and private institutions in the areas of financial aid, admissions, and resident life. She attended the University of North Carolina at Charlotte for undergrad study and the University of North Carolina at Greensboro for her grad study. She is also a member of the North Carolina Association of Student Financial Aid Administrator. Timeka make presentations and conduct trainings related to careers, financial literacy, and how to plan, apply, and pay for college across the state of North Carolina. Ms. Ruffin and I has been colleagues for many years, and she has never turned me away to say no. And a little side, she doesn't like to let people know, but she is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. Thank you again, Ms. Ruffin. Now introduce Ms. Timeka Ruffin.
Yeah. Thank you so much. But I'm definitely very, very excited to be here with all these beautiful deltas, right? So that's why I like to, let that be known. But I do thank you guys for joining this tonight. We are definitely going to talk about, and thank you, Tanger. We have known each other a while, so thank you for that introduction. We're going to talk for sure about paying for college. I do hope if you have questions, you can definitely put them in the chat. I will definitely hopefully have some time at the end where you can ask questions if you like to do that too. But we're going to go ahead and get started. One of the things I do work for College Foundation of College Foundation of North Carolina. We are sort of a nonprofit organization, but we have been around. This is actually our 25th year. And we're all about trying to make sure people have information about planning, applying, and paying for college. So a lot of the information we're going to give you is going to be on the website. So if you've never been on the website or are curious about something that I say, definitely go to the website. Lots of really free information. It's not just for students and parents in North Carolina. So if there's anybody here that's in South Carolina, it is for you too. But it's just all about preparing and getting ready for college. So one of the things I always like to start out with is just making sure that we understand, right, what it is as far as paying for college. So I do know that most people say college is expensive, but what does that mean? So just to kind of give you a breakdown of what you're looking at paying for when it comes to college and why it's so important to understand, right, why you need to understand the financial aid process and all that goes along with that. So the first 4 items up here are things you get a bill for from a college. So if you know nothing else about a school, I always tell people to make sure that you understand what it is you're expected to pay when you come there. Community colleges, you would just be paying for tuition and fees, obviously, because you're just taking classes there. But if you're planning to go to a four-year college and specifically live on campus, then you're also looking at paying for tuition and fees and room and meals. Colleges typically bill students twice a year. So normally, if you're a student, once you become a senior, towards the end of or shortly after graduation, I'll say, of your senior year from graduating from high school is typically when students and parents start to get their first bill for college. And it usually consists of the items here. Colleges have done a really great job of giving families a breakdown of these items. So the easiest way, though, that I think to find them is that when you go to a college's website, you can just type in the search bar cost of attendance, and normally they'll have a good breakdown of how much on average it costs, all of their different fees and tuition and all of that. So I definitely encourage you to do that for all the colleges that you're interested in, to be sure you're clear on how much it costs and what are those things you're going to be billed for. The other items that are up here, you're not going to get a bill for these, but colleges are expecting you to cover the expenses. And these are things like books. Obviously, once you graduate from high school, books are no longer free. So at this point, they start looking at, the average cost for books and how much do those things cost. On average, students are probably spending anywhere between $500 to $800 per semester for their books. It really just depends on the student's major, though, and how many books you have to have for the classes you're taking. Transportation is also a big piece. I do tell people to consider that, especially if you're thinking about going out of state or going a good distance away from home. You do want to consider transportation. How are you going to get back and forth home? What's the average cost for bus, plane, train tickets? What is that going to look like? So I'm big on students, making sure that they understand that sort of transportation piece if they're going out of state. But even if you're going to college within that state, and maybe let's say you have a car and you're thinking about taking your car there, you do want to be sure that you understand how much it costs to be able to park your car on campus, right? So some students are at high schools now where they might pay for a parking space, but college parking spaces cost a little bit more. Most colleges for parking, it's about $400 to $500 a year for a student to be able to park their car on campus. So just understanding like little things like that will help you when it comes to transportation. I will say today that a lot of students are able to get around quite well without having their own car. There are so many public transportation options. So one of the things I do encourage parents and students to look at as you're checking out different colleges, are there public transportation options? Does a college have their own transit system? Is the town or city large enough for there to be Ubers and Lyfts and things like that for you to be able to get around? So transportation is evolving. And so I do want you to be sure that you are paying attention to what's around you. If you don't have a car, how do you get around? That's important. And then personal and miscellaneous expenses are all the things that, it takes to live. I always do tell families and students that colleges are not hotels, right? They do not provide your bare necessities as far as what you need for the bathroom and what you need for laundry and any of those type of things. You have to bring all of that with you. And so I always encourage parents to think about when you wake up in the morning, or students, when you wake up in the morning to when you get ready to go to bed at night, what do you need to live? Like, what type of things do you need for the bathroom? What type of things do you need for your room? What type of things do you need to be able to function every day? And those are the type of things you have to keep in mind when it's time to go to college. It's really good today because a lot of stores do give, especially college students, the option to create wish lists, right? So just like wedding registries and baby registries, now they have college registries, and people can create their own wish list of things they need for college. If you are a student, especially if you're a senior, or if you are getting close to your senior year or in high school and thinking about going to college, it's a good time to create those lists. Give people time to get the items that you desire, and have all the things that you need and want for school. But personal miscellaneous is definitely a part of the process. So all of these things are the why, right? Of why we need to understand the financial side of going to college. This is on average when we're talking about all those things. This is kind of on average where we are right now for a lot of the different four-year schools. Especially if you're planning to live on campus, it's obviously a lot cheaper If you are going to commute to a four-year college, you don't have to pay to live and eat there when you are commuting. And to be honest, a lot of times that's usually the biggest thing that a lot of students are paying for, is to live and eat on a college campus. So as you are going to those colleges' websites and seeing the breakdown of their cost of attendance, right? How much the total cost to go there, pay attention to how much of this is housing and meals. Like that can make a huge difference, especially if you live in a close distance of the school. How much money you could save if you didn't live on campus, or if you did live on campus. So pay attention to the breakdown of those things. But this is just a total of all the different items I just talked about. And I'm showing it to you kind of on a 4-year scale, because I don't know what grade everybody's in right now, where you are in the process. One of the things I like to remind people is that, of course, there is inflation, which means that tuition goes up every year typically at colleges and universities. So just showing you also sort of the gradual increase of the cost of attendance at a lot of different types of schools, whether or not it's in the state or out of state. And of course, the community colleges are always appealing because they are very affordable. Lots of students now are choosing that as an option to go to school. And I do want to kind of mention this as we're talking about this, is that as you're looking at colleges, that you're also paying attention to where we are right now, right? You know, what are the needs that we have right now? Some of the biggest areas that we see growing, probably within even now, between now and probably the next 5 to 10 years, are going to be always, of course, healthcare is always a good area. Education is always a good area, but we definitely see growth in engineering and technology, right? And so some of those programs and some of those areas, especially in technology, you can get that done at a local community college. And so as you're looking at your options for college, your earning potential in different fields of study, definitely look at what's offered at your local community college. Depending on your area of study, some students have a greater earning potential at the 2-year school, depending on what they're going to school for. So again, pay attention to what's offered at the community college, and also to see where we're going technology-wise and what's offered there that you could take advantage of. So I do want to be sure that you see all of this. And again, also express my love for community colleges and students choosing it as either an option or as a transfer option to go there for 2 years and then transfer on to their 4-year institution. Just looking at different ways to save money is always my goal. And so I do want you to keep that in mind. So one of the main ways that people are able to pay that cost of attendance at those colleges that we are just talking about is most students are not just writing a check, right? We would love to say that all the students are on full scholarship and they're not worried about that, but that's not the case either. A lot of students pay for or apply for financial aid. We probably have about 17 to 18 probably million students that fill out this application every year to help pay for college across the US. And they do that because they want to get an offer to help them pay those cost of attendance that we just gave a breakdown for. This is the application to get an offer from a school. So I always tell students there's the admissions application to see if you get admitted. And then there is the FAFSA application. This is how they determine how much money you're able to get from a college. And so this is just as important as the admissions application. The application for financial aid is called the FAFSA. Again, it stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. Typically, it opens up October of every year. So this year and last year, there was a big change to the FAFSA. So because of that big change, there was a sort of delay that took place in an opening. So last year it didn't open until around the end of January. This year it didn't open until December. But we are expecting or hoping that it's going to be back on track for students who will be seniors starting next fall or this fall, so that you would be filling out your application starting October 1. So the deal with financial aid is that colleges do give you an offer, but they give you an offer per year. So it is an application that has to be renewed every year that you're in college. So every October 1, this form opens, and it's not just for high school seniors, it's also for currently enrolled students in college, because this is how they get an offer to come back to that college for the next year. So this is an application that does have to be renewed each year. And again, you would come to the same website. There is one universal website. There's not one by college. There's not one by state. Everybody comes to the same website. There's actually two pathways to get there. You can go to the studentaid.gov website, which is sort of their information sort of website, but it has a link to the FAFSA there, or you can go directly to the FAFSA. And that's FAFSA.gov. So either one of these will get you to where you need to be. People always ask me kind of where's this money coming from that we're applying for. So when you fill out a FAFSA application, you're applying for federal money, you're applying for state money, and you're also applying for your that institution's money. So one application, and you're applying for 3 different sources of money, which is why, again, it's such a powerful application, because you're able to apply for lots of different funds from just doing one. So it is a very important application, and you'll get to know it very well. Most students cannot start the FAFSA until their senior year. So I say most students their senior year because a traditional high school, it is your senior year that you are filling out the FAFSA. But if you're a student, or you have a student that's at the early college high school or middle college high school, it's whatever your last year is, right, at your early or middle college high school. But it's typically that senior year. It's usually the earliest that students can fill out the application. There's certain things they have to do. So just like any other website, students have to create an account. This name has changed so many times as far as what it's called, but currently the name of it is a student aid account, right? So you basically are creating an account for this website. The student has to create one. Basically, it's just a login like you would for any other website. So you're creating a username and password. And also at least one of the parents in the home has to create a login for this website. The general rule for the FAFSA form is that students who are under the age of 24, they have to have parent information on there. Now, they are very clear that everybody's family dynamics are different. So that's just sort of the baseline rule. But there are exceptions to the rule. So on the FAFSA application, you are asked a series of questions to see if you meet one of those exceptions. If a student meets that exception, then they can do it without a parent. But the general rule is if you're under 24, you have to have a parent. One of the big exceptions that I will mention that you would see on there would be if I have a guardian, a legal guardian. So lots of students, are raised by their grandmother, maybe another relative, or someone or a family friend. If that person is your legal guardian, that is an option to an exception to the rule. So it asks you whether or not you have a legal guardian. The student checks yes, and they're able to do the application without a parent. But again, if you don't meet any of the exceptions, you do have to provide parent information on this form each year, and the parent also has to have a login. So this is just to show you what it looks like for a login. I always like to put this on here because I don't like to assume that everybody's in the same situation. For most students, they do ask for a social security number, and most students, and lots of students do have one. There are students who don't, either their parents don't have a social security number. And if that's the case, there is an option on the form where the students can click, or the parent can click, that they do not have a social. And there are other questions that they're asked in order to be able to create a login for this website. Students do have to either be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen, but the parent does not have to have a social. And so if you have a parent that does not have one, that is an option for you. But again, as a student, you would have to have one. So it looks like this when you come to the website. So whatever year you have to come fill it out, you go to the FAFSA site, everybody comes here. You'll notice that they have stuff on here by school year. And so that's why it's so important when you are doing it that you wait until it's your turn. So let's say you are a sophomore in high school or junior in high school, and you're like, well, I'm going to go ahead and do it now just to get it out of the way. They have this application out there by school year. So if you were to do the application, but you weren't enrolled in a college, or when by the time it got to a college, you haven't even done an application for that college and been admitted, nothing will happen with your application. It will not be processed. So you have to wait until the year that it's time for you to start applying for college. So you'll see on here, for students this year, they're filling out the form for this coming up school year, which is 2025, 2026. I always tell students who are junior, you're going to be filling out your application will say something different starting in the fall, right? Because you'll have one that will say 2026, 2027. This one is here is for the current senior class. And not to scare junior families, but you don't have another year. You have a few months before that's going to be you. So I always like to say that because sometimes juniors get a little lax as it gets close to the senior year, but you don't have another year. It's not next year that you'll be a senior. It's been a few months you'll be a senior. So you'll be coming to the website to do this application as well. What do you need to fill it out? So I told you have to do a login. The reason why this form is talked about so much is because most applications for college students can do them on their own, but because it involves parent information and because it involves income information, it becomes a little bit more complex than the admissions process. So one of the main things that they ask for on the FAFSA application is your family income, and it's usually based off of the prior school year. So for seniors this year, senior families this year, they are basing that off of their 2023 or their family's 2023 income information. Sometimes you will hear people say prior year, because technically if I was a senior family and I'm just completing the FAFSA, 2023 was 2 years ago. So that's prior year. But typically when students basically start to do it in the fall, it is based off of the prior year. So keep that in mind. So for parents that are on here, I always tell if you have a student who's about to be a senior, that year that prior year, or that year before your student's about to be a senior, you definitely want to save that tax information or make sure you know where it is, because it will be needed for this. What I will say with this FAFSA application, it used to be a complete nightmare. Like people dreaded filling this out every year. Almost they felt like it was like filling out taxes, right? But there's been a significant change to it. It's a lot shorter than what it used to be. We're actually helping a lot of seniors now fill it out, and really people are getting it done in like 15 minutes, getting this application done. It's been shortened a lot. They do actually pull income information directly from the IRS, so people aren't really manually entering in a lot of stuff. So it is a lot shorter, a lot easier for people to do. So that's good news. So again, this is something that is renewed each year. You come back to the same website, and when you renew it, they're going to ask you just to kind of update primarily the income information, because again, they know that it's a new year. So that should be different information. So just want to give you some kind of basics about what you'll need. For parents that are on here, sometimes they do ask a little bit of questions about assets. They don't go very, very deep into your assets, but they do ask about sort of the general assets that most of us are aware of: cash savings, checkings accounts, any type of investment accounts. They do ask a little bit about those. So those are kind of the major things that they will ask you about on there. They do not ask you about the home that you live in, but if you have investment property, they do ask you about that sometimes. And then they'll also ask you not about your retirement income, but of course, or obviously if you withdrew money from the prior year from any retirement account, they will ask you about that. So just to kind of give you sort of some general, what you need. This is sort of the meat of the application. So when people are filling it out, again, about 15 minutes now for people to do it. So it's really not a dreadful application. What parents do you have to report? So this is a big question we get a lot. So I've said at the beginning, if students are under 24, parent information is needed. It gets complicated, right? Because our families are sometimes complicated. So, what does that mean? This is a chart, but if you want to read the chart, you can absolutely do that. But just a simplified way to answer it is if you have two parents in the home, two parents' income have to be on the form. If I just live with my mother, either because my parents are now separated or divorced or they were never married, then I'm putting on there the parent that provides the most financial support to me. And in most cases, if I'm primarily living with my mother, even if my parents are, let's say my other parent is paying child support, if I'm primarily living with my mom, she's probably providing the most financial support to me. But they do have a parent wizard on the application that helps you figure that out. But if my parent, let's say I do choose that I'm going to put my mom's information on here. Let's say my mom, she got married or she got remarried. Now I have to include my step parent on the application too. So the general rule is either two biological or adoptive parents, single parent, or a parent and a step parent. It has to be on the application every year. But they do have a parent assist tool on there now that you can plug in your family dynamic, and it'll tell you which parent to report. So it's got a lot easier. One of the things that's changed with this application is, again, they do require parent information on here. Students are kind of start the application, they log in with their login, and they answer as many questions as they can. The primary question students are asked, of course, is, what high school they go to. They also ask them, where do you want to have this application sent? Because remember I said for financial aid purposes, there's no application by college like with admissions. You fill out one application and they ask you, where do you want to have this application sent? And students can now send it to up to 20 different colleges, which I love, because I feel like the more options you have, the better for you in the end, which I'll show you. But students can put up to 20 different schools. And so that's the primary section for students. They do ask students if they worked in the prior year. And if a student worked in the prior year, they do not have to have filed taxes, but they'll ask you what the student earned from working. So the student section is not very complex either. It's pretty short for students. And then instead of though you kind of just stopping and the parent just continues on, in order for the parent to continue with the application now, the parent has to be invited. So after the student section, the parent is invited to complete the parent section. Now students see a screen that kind of looks like this. They put in their parents' information, their social security number if they have one, and their email address, and then they invite their parent to do the parent section. I have seen instances where parents have started the application and invited the student, but it makes it easier flow if the student starts the application and invites the parent. But I have seen scenarios where parents have started it and invited their student. So once whoever gets invited gets an email with the link in it so that they can fill out their section. This is why I mentioned at the beginning that there has to be 2 logins that are created for this website. So I have to create one as a student, and one of my parents has to create one, because whoever I invite to do this application, they have to log in separate from me. They get invited from me, which is how they get access to the application, but they have to log in with their own login. So parents, whoever gets invited, they get an email. If the student gets invited, they get an email, and they log in to the application and they just fill out their section. They did this primarily because a lot of parents didn't want students to see their income information. So they needed to separate it in a way, or figure out a way to do that. And that was the sort of solution for that issue. So once whoever finishes the application first, they hit submit, and then you'll see a screen that looks kind of like this, congratulating the person for completing their application. And they also are very nice and tell you what happens next, right? Where this is going, which I do like, to let you know that it's leaving their website and now it's going to the colleges, right? That you have listed on there to get the application. What I will say with the four-year colleges, you do have to be admitted before you are sent an official offer through that college. If you're not admitted to that four-year school, they will get the application, but they won't make a financial offer to you until you get admitted to that school. With community colleges, obviously it's an open door policy. Everybody is admitted there. So you will be getting an offer from a community college if you apply to the community college and list that community college on the FAFSA application. So it tells you what happened next. And then students usually and families get a summary just to make sure you did it right. So you can see where it's going, kind of what kind of information, that's on here. So they give you a good summary of your form. And then I always like to tell families that in most cases, once you hit submit, that's the end of the story. You hit submit, they send it to the colleges, you wait to hear from the colleges. But there are a few things that could happen between you hitting submit and it going to the college. Colleges do have a verification process right now still. And so a college could send you an email and say that we did get your FAFSA application. Thank you for applying for financial aid, but you've been selected for our verification process. And they may ask to see some additional documents. And that's completely normal. You haven't done anything wrong. You're just part of their verification process. All colleges are required to do that. And so if you do get an email like that, I just encourage families to go ahead and provide whatever documents they are asking you for so that you can go ahead and they can start processing your application. But that could happen. It doesn't happen to everybody, but there are a small percentage of families that do get selected for that process of verification. And I just encourage you again to just provide whatever documents they're asking you for. And then the big question I get through this process is, okay, so I went through the process of filling out this FAFSA form because I heard this lady mention that that's important in it, but what am I actually applying for? These are the items you're applying for. So I told you where the money's coming from. This is what you're applying for. So you're applying for scholarships and grants through this process. You know the scholarship word because that's the word that everybody talks about the most, right? Everybody's dream is to get a full ride to the college of their choice. But through this process, you're also applying for scholarships. So colleges have scholarships you apply for separate, but then they also have scholarships that they offer through this FAFSA process. And so you're applying for scholarships and you're also applying for grants. That's kind of a new word for some people, but grants are like scholarships. It is free money, money that does not have to be paid back, but it's also a part of the process. Typically, a lot of the families that get grants, they're usually based on financial need, but you are definitely being considered for grants. And then work study is also a thing that you're applying for. What a lot of students don't realize is when they go to college, they will experience a certain level of being broke that they've never experienced before, right? And so I know a lot of students like, well, I'm broke now, but it's different when you go to college. It's different when you have freedom and no money. Right now, you're kind of at home, you're under rules and regulations of where you can go and when you can come home. When you're away at college, you know, it's kind of, you have free reign to really come and go as you please. The problem is you don't have money to do that. And so the realities of life start to seep in. And that's why they like to offer students the opportunity to earn money while they're in college, because it is a process where you do need some extra money while you're in school. I always encourage students, if you don't get offered work study through the financial aid process, most colleges have a student employment office, so you can always find out who's hiring on campus. And then obviously if it's in a town or city, they probably have close employment. But it's important to not only have that extra money, but it's also important for you to get that work experience. I always like people to remember why you're going to college, right? Whether or not you're planning to start your own business or whether or not you're planning to work for someone else. You always want to be sure that you understand how the world of work works, right? What it means to be on time, why you have to have certain things done at a certain time. You create a work ethic that you will never learn in a classroom. So I'm always encouraging students that when they're in college, you need a part-time job. And especially, if not more so, if you're going to have your own business, you need to have a work ethic because your work ethic has to be 100%. And so you need to learn what that's like by working for other people and seeing how they run their business. So work study is important. And then you're also going to be offered loans. That's a part of the process. People don't like to talk about loans as it relates to college, but there's lots of people who would not have been able to go to college if they did not invest in themselves. And that's how I like to look at loans that are necessary, is that it's an investment in your future. If you would not be able to go to college, let's say if you didn't take out a $5,000 loan to help you pay for it, and you wouldn't be able to have the opportunity that you have, it is really an investment into your future where you'd have more earning potential and you'd make that money back tenfold, right? Whereas if you didn't go to college and you made, let's say, at least minimum wage, you just would never have that earning potential that you would have if you have some type of certification or degree. So I'm not against student loans, but I am against smart borrowing. And so I always tell students it's always going to be an option to you. I'm given to you by colleges, so you're applying for students and parents are offered loans to help make this work. So you do one application, you're applying for all this stuff. So I always like to have people say, you always want options. I love options. I love options in food. I love options in clothes. And I definitely love financial options. So when you fill out this form, you are getting options. And then you also want to be sure, the FAFSA is the main application that you hear people talk about, but there are a few colleges that do ask for a second application. The only thing I'll encourage you to do is that for the colleges that you are thinking about, you'll want to go to their financial aid page on their website and see what applications are needed to get a financial offer from their school. Most colleges will just have the FAFSA. There are a few colleges, though, that you will see this application. It's called the CSS profile. So they'll want you to complete the FAFSA and the CSS profile. If you go to the College Board website, they're the people that do the SAT. But they also do this financial application for some colleges. They also have a list of all the colleges in the country that ask for it. So it's similar to the FAFSA, but they ask a few different questions than the FAFSA does. It's not required, but it's highly recommended. This form is just for institutional money. So if a college asks for it, you are applying specifically for institutional money for that college when you fill out this application. The FAFSA is free. That's what the first F in FAFSA stands for. This application, though, does cost $25 to do. So they do have a waiver available for it too. So I always tell people to see if you qualify for the waiver. So you don't have to pay the $25. But if you do, again, it's an investment to see whether or not you could be offered more money to come into that, to go to that college. So if you see it as an offer or as an application for the college, I highly encourage you to do it. And then after you do the financial forms for the colleges, I do also encourage you and can strongly encourage you, of course, to do scholarship searches. These are just like the categories I just like for you to make sure you're touching on. Yes, the FAFSA, you will be considered for some scholarship money, but there are still lots of separate applications that are available to do scholarships too. Local scholarships would mean local businesses, local churches, local organizations like the organization that you're part of tonight with Delta Sigma Theta. Know that they offer a scholarship as well. So those are the type of scholarships you're looking for, like local organizations, like local clubs. You want to see who offers scholarships within your community. And then also state. So if you are planning to go to college within your state, obviously we're in North Carolina. And so you want to see what's offered through the state of North Carolina to help me pay for college. Then you want to be sure that you visit CFNC because we do house all of the state-based scholarships. So all the requirements will say, if you are planning to go to college here in North Carolina, you can apply for these scholarships. So you always want to exhaust state scholarship opportunities. And then all the individual colleges, they offer their own scholarships. And so you want to be sure that as you're checking out colleges, checking out their cost of attendance, checking to see if they have to have a separate financial application besides the FAFSA, you also want to be sure you're checking and asking them about scholarship opportunities. Are there other applications that I need to do for different scholarships? A lot of colleges do have their own portal now, so you may have to log into their portal on their website to get access. And usually once students get admitted, a lot of colleges are giving students access to their scholarship portal. So you could check to see what's offered there. But I also know, again, some of you are hoping for those full partial scholarships, and that's the information that's usually available either on the financial aid part of a website or the admissions page. And then I do want people to do your own searches. You know, national searches are a thing, and the way that we search them are very two simple ways. For one, go to your app store on your phone, search scholarship apps. A lot of websites now have apps, so you can download apps now to your phone that students can apply for scholarships directly through the apps. And then the other big place I like for students to go is to use search engines like Google. And then, of course, as AI technology starts to advance, there's different ways to search through that. But I always tell people to use Google and to search for scholarships that way. That's how we search for everything in this world, right? There's no different with scholarships. People make it more complicated than it is. What am I looking for? Who do I need to talk to find out about scholarships? Google what you're looking for. I have lots of students who also plan to go to graduate school and all of that, and they wonder if certain colleges offer scholarships for graduate students. Google that. It's not secret information. All of that is public information. You just have to have the right words you put in there to look for it. But I like to use Google and apps on phones to look for national scholarship opportunities. And then I do want to make sure that you are aware that North Carolina created this scholarship program last year called the Next North Carolina Scholarship. This is just one of the scholarships we offer through the state, but just want to make people aware, because it's fairly new, that this is a scholarship that if a family has a household income of $80,000 a year or less, you will get $33,000 to go to any of our community colleges, which really at a community college just can cover just about everything. And then you will get $5,000 to go towards any of our 16 public state institutions. So again, you fill out the FAFSA. Your family has a household income of $80,000 a year or less, you will get money through the state to help you pay for college. So again, this is a new scholarship or a remarketed scholarship that we have through our state. Just want to make sure you're aware of that. If you're thinking about going to any of our wonderful, we have over 110 colleges in North Carolina if you're planning to go to school here. And then just wanted to make sure that you all have information about the amount that students can borrow. Remember, I did say I usually am not against loans if students are borrowing smart. And so this is just to let you know the amounts that students are able to borrow per year while they're in college. This is currently the limit. So students first year can borrow up to $5,500, second year up to $6,500, and their junior and senior years, they can borrow up to $7,500 to help pay for college. And then I also mentioned they give parents an option to help pay for school if they like to. And so parents are also offered a loan. And so there's not a chart for parents, though. Parents can borrow however much they need to pay the bill, right? So if you still owe a college a certain amount of money, they will allow you to borrow up to really the cost of attendance to go to that college. But essentially, most people are smart about borrowing, so they'll borrow only what they need to pay a bill for a student. But they do offer a parent loan as an option also. And then you do all of it so you can get an offer. So this is just showing you what offers look like, financial offers look like. So we talked about at the very beginning, the cost of attendance and how much it costs to go to different schools per year, right? To be able to live on campus, to be a full-time student, all of those things. When you get those offers back from colleges, you're just trying to see who got the closest to that cost of attendance that you remember. This is why I like for students and parents to keep it in memory, to know, especially their favorite colleges, how much it costs to go there a year, because when they start giving those offers from you filling out the FAFSA, and applying for different scholarships or doing that CSS profile, you want to see who got close to how much it costs to go here. It's not a guarantee when you do these forms that you're going to get 100% of what you need. And this is the reason why I was excited about them having 20 spaces to put colleges. Because if you have 20 spaces, every college is going to put their best foot forward. And each one of them is going to offer you as whatever the best they can for your student to be able to come to their school. So if I have 20 different schools listed on my FAFSA, let's say, then I'm going to get 20 different financial offers. And I'm going to be able to sit down with my family and we're going to be able to see who gave us the best offer for me to get this degree or this certificate or whatever program that I'm in. My goal and our goal always with families is to get to be able to go to college with the least amount of debt. And the way that you do that is not by loving a school first before they give you money. Your goal is to wait to fall in love with a school after they give you money. And so I love parents that love to take them back to their, their school and get them all in love with it. But you're almost hurting yourself when you do that because that student falls in love with the school and that school that maybe doesn't give them a good financial offer to come there. And so now you're stuck and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for this because that school didn't offer you what you thought that they would. And so I like for students to be very open to the process, to apply to all the schools that offer their degree or program and see what different schools offer them. And again, to see who gives me the best opportunity to go to college for free without getting a full scholarship, because that's a possibility. And so once you do that, students are able to compare different offers. So that's why I'm showing you this, because that's why I like for students to have multiple schools so that, again, you can have some really smart conversations with your family about, okay, this school offered me this. this school offered us this school offered us this, and we can really have some smart conversations. Is it worth us paying this when this school is offering us this, and we'll only have to come out of pocket this amount in order to be able to go to that school? So I love for students to have options. Once colleges have given you their offer, they do ask you at this point if you received any outside scholarship money. So when I was talking about searching for individual scholarships, this is when they come into play. So they will ask you if you received any outside scholarship money so that they can try to start deducting that from what you still would owe after they've given you their offer. And so that's why outside scholarships are still so very important in this process. So yes, you fill out the FAFSA because you're trying to apply to all these different types of money, but you're also still applying for individual scholarships because you don't know, right, what a college is able to offer you to go there. Most college offers do not come to students until around the springtime. So seniors this year are probably going to start getting offers around March or April. So that'll be the time frame they'll get it. So it is sort of a waiting game. After you complete the FAFSA, after you apply, then you get the offers. One of the opportunities I do want to kind of mention, and before we open it up to questions, is that we are doing statewide, a lot of statewide webinars to kind of make sure you're staying informed on what's happening. And because, of course, we're getting close to Black History Month and making sure we're celebrating our historically Black colleges and universities in our state, we're doing a webinar next week about scholarship opportunities at HBCUs. It's going to be full of panelists from different HBCUs across our state who will be talking about scholarship opportunities. Because again, I know that a lot of you are hoping you get some full rides and some partial rides. And so the hope of our panel is that they'll talk about some of those opportunities and kind of what they're looking for when they're trying to offer those. So be sure to join. You can either scan a QR code or go to our events page, and we will, you can register there. But hopefully that's a good opportunity for you. And then also we're doing Financial Aid Awareness Month is what we're also doing in the month of February. So we're going to have lots of different webinars. One very similar to what I was talking about tonight, which is how people are paying for college and understanding the financial aid process. If you want an actual FAFSA walkthrough, so you want to go through every question on the FAFSA, we'll be doing a webinar in February about a FAFSA walkthrough, and that's what that will be. Will be a line by line walkthrough of the FAFSA. Won't be long though, because again, the FAFSA is a lot shorter than what it used to be. We're also going to do a webinar about all different types of state aid. So remember, I mentioned lots of different programs through the state to help students pay for college. We're going to talk about some of that. And then the last webinar for February will be about evaluating offers. So I kind of touched on that, but that whole webinar will be about how you evaluate different offers from schools. And so join those and be sure that you take advantage of that. So at this point, what I will do is pause and see if there are any questions, if anybody has any questions or anything. I didn't look in the chat to see if there was anything, but are there any questions that anybody has about anything that I said?
I think there was one question in the chat. It happened earlier in the meeting, so in the webinar, so I'm not sure. I think you kind of answered this already. Someone said, how does the North Carolina residency apply when it comes to the FAFSA?
That's a good question. In North Carolina, we do require that students complete residency. It's kind of like you're validating that you're a resident of North Carolina. So it's sort of a separate online application process. So you do admissions applications, you'll fill out the FAFSA, and then we also have North Carolina families do have to also validate their residency on a website. It comes into play when you are trying to be considered for money through your state. So remember, through the FAFSA, you're applying for federal money, state money, and institutional money. In order for us to consider you for any money through the state of North Carolina, we have to see that your residency has been validated. So that's how that comes into play with the FAFSA, and then it also comes into play with individual scholarships that we offer through the state.
Thank you. And it looks like that's the only question in the chat.
Okay. Well, that was all. I don't know if anybody has any other questions.
But it sure does rhyme.
Hey, Timeka, I do have a question. How are you doing today?
How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for all this great information. So I started the process, and I love how the FAFSA links directly to the IRS for tax information. Have you had experience or have had to navigate when your tax return is being amended and you're kind of on pause with the IRS? what does that do to the FAFSA, and are there ways to work around it, or do you have any knowledge about that type of situation?
Yeah, so and I'll solicit Miss Young too to kind of help answer, because this is kind in those situations is typically where a family may have to work directly with the financial aid office to see what it is they prefer at that college. Because then, of course, in order to submit the FAFSA now, it only pulls that year's tax that they're looking for. And if it's not in there, it may either not be able to be submitted until that information is there. Now, I don't know, Ms. Young or Tanger, if you have any information about what colleges do with parents that are an amended tax situation or haven't filed their prior year taxes. Oh, you're muted.
Yes, there we go. If they haven't filed their taxes yet, they cannot complete the application. If it's amended, then you have to contact the financial aid office, and you will probably have to submit the actual tax return to the institution, and the institution will have to manually put that information in the system for you.
For all of our problems.
Perfect. Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Well, I'll stop sharing just to make sure and see if there's anybody else that has any questions they want to ask, and I'll turn it back over to you all if nobody else does. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Timeka, for all of that valuable information, and for always being willing to do these workshops for us. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
For everyone, I also dropped a link to Concord alumni scholarship opportunities. They are available to seniors who are in the Concord and Cabarrus areas. So if that applies to you, please take a look at that as well. And if there are no more questions, we will end this event for tonight. But thank you all so much for joining us for this, and you have a great evening.